Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and start. Hi, I'm Lindsay, and welcome to the Citizens Advisory Council, the first meeting for 24, 25. So we're gonna go around and just start introductions. Sabrina, do you wanna go first?
Sure. My name is Sabrina Nail. I'm the ombuds with Frederick School. I help to address concerns, work with people, parents, students, staff, and community members to help them navigate, find the best points of contact or the best process or best resource, look to work with the school system to address concerns, and then explore options for next steps. It's a pleasure to have you all here tonight.
Hi, my name's Alex. I go to Ligonor High School, and I'm a junior there. I'm just here for fun,
Welcome.
Hi, I'm Brant Shalikashvili. I am a recovering government consultant and full-time dad of a 7-year-old at Parkway Elementary, and she has allowed me to come do this for a while. Well, she questioned me a lot today.
I'm Lindsay Gonzalez. I'm the chair of the committee. I work for the federal government. My 16-year-old son is in the Expressions program at TJ High, and then my 12-year-old daughter is at Newmarket Middle.
I'm Celeste McNeish, and I am your policy committee liaison, so we'll talk about that a little bit later, but I get to sit on that committee too and kind of make connections in between our two groups. I have a junior and a freshman at Walkersville High School.
Hi, my name's Angela Labazetta. I have 2 daughters. I have a 9-year-old daughter who goes to Frederick Elementary, and my 13-year-old daughter is at TJ Middle.
Hi everyone, I'm Carly Ziegler. I've got 6 kids in Middletown, 2 of which graduated from Middletown High. I've got another one in the elementary, a couple in, one in the middle, elementary, primary. Every school, basically. That way.
Good evening, my name's Mike Marco. I serve as Deputy Superintendent. This will be my 11th year here with Frederick County Public Schools. I have a 9-year-old at Myersville Elementary School.
Chris Brandt, nonprofit executive for my professional life. I have 4 children, 3 in the system. I have 1 at TJ as a senior. I have 1 as a 2nd grader and 1 as a 1st grader in Yellow Springs. And a 7-month-old, so.
Oh,
There's a big gap. Yeah.
And Chris volunteered to be our secretary, so thank you so much
Yeah, no
for
problem.
doing that. I appreciate it. Okay, so to go through the agenda, we're going to review the minutes, and then we'll do public comment, board member comment, senior leadership comment, and then we'll have a discussion about expectations of members, and then overview of CAC. And then Celeste will do the policy committee update, and then we'll just have open discussions before we close. Any questions? Okay, so for the agenda, did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes from April 16th? There a motion to approve the minutes?
I'll move to approve the minutes as written.
In a second?
Second.
Awesome, thank you. So the minutes are approved. No public comment.
Are we all in favor for the approval?
Oh, sorry. Are we all in favor of approval?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, Sabrina. Okay, no public comment, so then we can move to board member comment and senior leadership comments.
I have a board member on the phone right now.
Oh, okay.
Do you want to give any comments right now? Because we're just at that point in the agenda. I can put you on, hold on, let me put you on speaker. Okay, go ahead.
Yes, greetings all. Apologies for the delay. I had last year's schedule on my mind. We're at 6 this year, not 7. Apologies. I'll be there shortly. I want to thank you all for coming today. I'm so glad you're with us. And let's go ahead and get started.
Okay, and that's Mr. Jay Johnson is our board liaison.
Okay.
Yes.
Dr. Marco, do you have any comments?
we've just had a very smooth start to the school year with the exception of some anonymous threats, which seems to be a national issue right now that's touching Frederick County. Of course, we had the horrific incident in Georgia that has everybody very anxious, including Frederick County Public public school parents and students and staff members. So that's made it a little challenging. Other than a sewage blockage and otherwise, we're off to a very good start.
Great. Any other senior leadership comments? All right, moving on. Okay, so here we're going to just go through the overview of the CAC and the expectations. So some of these I'm just going to read out, and then we can just discuss any questions or comments. Do you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, sure. I'm Elham, last name Sure, and I'm a senior in high school.
Okay, welcome. Thank you. Okay, so Article 2 goes through the mission. And I'll just read this. The CAC reports directly to the board and serves as a channel for public concerns, advice, and information as identified by the board. The CAC may also respond to specific requests for research at the direction of the majority of the board and make recommendations on specific topics impacting educational decisions and programs in Frederick County. For Article 3, members will be community members, a max membership of 25, and I think we have, what, 12-ish? Members will serve a 2-year term and may reapply. And a member may be removed from membership after missing 3 meetings through a majority vote and approval of the Board of Education. Like I said, we serve as a channel for public concern and makes recommendations. Any questions on any of that? Okay. For officers will serve a 1-year term. The chairperson presides at all meetings, calls special meetings as needed. We don't have a vice chair right now. Is anyone interested in? All right, and then the recording secretary is Chris. He's going to take all the minutes and assist staff in distributing the minutes that we'll approve at each meeting. And then the advisory non-voting member of the policy committee is Celeste, and then she'll kind of go through that a little bit more when we get to that point. Election of officers will take place each year, and then we did them at the end of the year last year, so then I guess we'll do it at the end of the year again this year. And then a special election will be held for an officer. The meeting dates have already been announced. I don't know if everybody saw them. Okay, on the website. Great. The meetings are open to the public, and the time will be provided for public comment. Anyone making public comment will be required to sign in. The agenda goes out 3 business days prior, and also will be made available to the public. And everybody has access to knows where the link is on the board docs to go through and look at all the documentation. Chairperson will have the authority to schedule emergency meetings as needed. And then we can also set up ad hoc or standing subcommittees as needed. Voting will be done by a show of hand with majority rule of those present. Okay, Article 7, proposed amendments to CAC bylaws will be submitted in writing to the members at least 20 days prior to a vote during the general meeting. And amendments must be approved by a simple majority, and upon ratification will take effect immediately. And then they'll be reviewed every 2 years by the officers. That's basically it for the bylaws. Any questions or comments or any additions, Sabrina? No? Okay.
First meeting's almost here.
Okay, Celeste, it's on to you.
Wow, I'm at the bottom of the page. Okay, that was pretty quick.
Well,
So, we've been serving on this committee for a couple of years, or a year and a half? I don't know.
this is the third
This is
year.
our third, right?
Yeah.
So when we first started, this was a committee that had existed in the past, and then they brought it back. So we joined, and a lot of what ended up, like our role kind of evolved over time as the committee evolved as well. And so one big charge from the Board of Education, because we serve as a component to assist them. And one charge that they had for us is to help with policy. So that was kind of a surprise to a lot of us. I don't know if that's going to be a surprise to you guys or not, because we were like, what do you mean policy? So we have policies and regulations, right, that govern what we do. So the policies explain what the Board of Ed views as how they want things to go, and the regulations actually explain how it works in the schools. So if you're talking about a rule, like the cell phone rule, for example, that's been discussed a lot. There's a policy, and the policy talks about how the Board of Ed sees the cell phone usage and what they want to see with it. The regulation actually spells it out, like in your school, this is what needs to happen. So there is a policy committee in the Board of Education. There are 3 Board of Ed members on there. Ray Gallagher is on there, Dean Rose, and Nancy Allen. And last year, I was able to join as a non-voting member of the policy committee. So that was pretty exciting. Again, we were kind of shocked about the whole policy idea when it first came up to our committee, because we were not expecting that, I guess, as much work on policy as we ended up doing. But I will say throughout the past couple of years, and as this has evolved, I think we've really recognized how important that is, and it's really amazing to have that up close and personal view of what the policies say, where they come from, and how important it really is to maintain like where it's going. You know, and we're updating policies. So right now we're working on updating policies that haven't been reviewed in a long time. And you know, as technology changes and cultures change, policies need to change to keep up. So that's a lot of what we're doing now as a policy committee. We meet typically once a month, and we talk about policies. So between this committee and that committee, I just keep myself a running commentary of notes. I take notes there and I bring them back to you guys, and I'll take notes from here, from what you all think about what we're discussing in policy, and bring it back to them. So I don't have a vote on the policy committee, but I do get to speak and, you know, represent what we think as a group, and it's been a really amazing experience. The policy committee itself doesn't have the final say on the policy that is finalized. We look at it, we evaluate it, and they vote to send it to the whole board, and then the whole board will discuss, and then they can send it back, or if the whole board loves it the way it is, then they just give it their vote of approval, and it's done. So that's kind of in a nutshell how that works. Each month there are policies that we look at, and then there's policies that we know we're going to look at in the future, so we can talk about some of that stuff, or if there's things also that we feel as a committee that we think policies are, you know, we need to kind of bring to the forefront, we can do that too. You know, and I'm allowed to do that. So, and it's a really fun committee. We had a hilarious discussion about sunscreen at the last committee, because we were talking, I forget what the policy was that we were talking about, but sunscreen was specifically like laid out in this policy, and it turns out that sunscreen actually is a medication, so they had to specifically say kids can actually have sunscreen on their person at school and apply it in person. So it's a lively group. I mean, we do have fun, and it's very serious and very academic most of the time. But it's amazing to know like what we're doing as a Board of Education and as a county education system. So it's good stuff. Do you guys have any questions?
I'm totally familiar with policies.
Did I cover everything?
Hence the recovering government.
Recovering. I hear you.
That's what I did for a decade, was write government policies.
And you're not running out the door, so it's good.
When did you guys have a meeting recently?
We did. We met in the end of August. Our next meeting is next week, and I'm going to pull up my notes here so I can share with you guys. So, for example, in August, we talked about a couple different ones. One, we talked about the dress code policy, which is policy 439. And probably before we get any further, I want to show you guys where you can find the policies on the Board of Ed website, okay? So if you just type into your search, you can do it on your phone or whatever. It's very easy to find once you find it. If you just type in FCPS policy, you're going to get FCPS board docs, and then there's policy and regulations in there. So it looks like you'll see the FCPS logo at the top. Then there are filters at the top, so let me know when you guys get there. I just typed in FCPS policy and it kind of came up. And also make sure you get FCPS Maryland. Okay, so you got the FCPS. So you're going to look for the policies. You can sort policies and regulations. We really deal with policy. Regulations is a whole separate situation. So if you want to do a search for policy, look for a policy number 439. And that was one of the ones that we talked about at the last meeting, and that is dress code. I just want to make sure you guys can find these things.
See up to 4.
Okay, so you're right there. So, look for, where are you? You want to go up to Board of Education, right? And then Board Docs, Agenda Meeting Now. Oh shoot, now where are you? Hold on, let me see.
You probably just put it in the search.
Yeah, if
Try
you
to
could
put it
just
in the search usually.
do the, is
Okay.
there like in the, yeah, up there.
Here,
Just type in policy 439. And that should take you straight to it.
Internet is slow.
I know.
Probably. Yeah.
It'll get you
It'll
there.
load. Yeah.
While you guys are looking around in there, something else that might be helpful that I really appreciate in the policy meeting is our agenda, which has the policy and it has the red line version of the policy, which is, that includes all of the edits that they're looking at. It shows you the original when things that are struck out. And so that's a really nice way to follow what's happening. So as the year goes on and we're following things more closely, if you're interested in seeing how that is working, that's what you want to look at. Okay, does everybody have 439 up there? Okay, and if you don't, it's okay, I'll help you guys. So we did talk about the dress code, and we're going to edit, and it's going to go to the Board of Ed for discussion. This was at the end of August meeting that we had. They met with students, a lot of principals, and so some of the big changes they wanted to allow more inclusive language and take away some gender biases. So when they're talking about revealing clothing, I think bra straps were probably in there. Well, everyone doesn't wear bras, so students were like, we don't want gender specific things. So rather than that, they were talking about, revealing clothing and kind of changing that language to be a little bit more inclusive of our entire population. Another big change is that they're allowing head coverings in high schools. So they changed that, was a big change. And some high schools had been doing it a little bit in the past, but the students, we want to have some freedom and expression, and you can wear your baseball hat or, you wear your hood or whatever, so they are allowing that just in high schools. And they did talk to middle school principals, and they said, no, we do not want to do that. So they left, middle school and below, no head coverings, no hoods, no hats. But at high school, they changed that, which I thought was great too. And so we edited that piece, and then that was voted to go back to the Board of Ed for them to discuss. And then if the Board of Ed voted to approve it and they like it the way it is, they'll just put it back in there. A lot of times they'll vote to send it back to us because they didn't like something, or you guys need to talk more about this, get some more research, and then come back. So that was 439. That's what we did. Another one we talked about was 418, and this is just a really beginning discussion on child abuse and neglect. These are old policies. The policies that we're discussing are in the 400 series, and a lot of these are pretty old and haven't been reviewed in the last 5 to 10 plus years. So that's a big reason why we're doing that now. So basically we read through 418, but we're going to discuss it at the next meeting, and they're going to bring us a draft. So some other things that you guys might hear in a meeting where if you read the paper or hear anything in the media, a couple of my friends actually were like, hey, why did they get rid of the policy on suicide, or why did they get rid of the dress code? I'm like, they didn't. So they sometimes will look at a policy and it'll have a redundant section, right? So we might get rid of a section because it's already covered somewhere else. So technically, yeah, we struck that policy, but it was already covered somewhere else. So a lot of that is just in an effort to really kind of make it make sense, and make it easier to find things and make it more clear to the people who are carrying out the regulations. Another one that we're going to talk about next time is 420, which is physical examinations and immunizations, and that is where the sunscreen discussion came up, which was pretty funny. And that just talks about, the requirements that you have to submit that information. That's going to come up next time too. And then we talked about 409, which is promotion of health and wellness. And we may combine that with 420 because some of that seems to be pretty relatable. And so we're going to talk about that again, probably not till November, December. So that's kind of where we were for that meeting. It was not one of our longer meetings. So do you guys have any questions or thoughts? Or it's a lot of information that was very foreign to us when we first started talking about this. So I know, we've been doing this for a year, so I'm like, oh, but I was like, where's board docs? What is that?
Part of your role as members is to connect with people in your feeder pattern, your community, your schools, and share back with the committee here some feedback. So such as some of those upcoming policies or direction from the board may be to have citizens advisory ask questions about a specific thing. And then again, gather feedback to share with us so that it can be brought back to the board through Celeste at this point to connect with policy committee or even feedback directly to the board on certain situations. So that's part of your role as members of the committee.
A big thing too is that we can give public comment as ourselves as citizens or as members of the committee if we discuss that we need to make a statement as a CAC. And there's public comment at policy committee. There's public comment, of course, at the Board of Ed. Obviously, we could have had it here. So that's all an option too. And I think you can go back and watch the meeting. So if you want to see the discussion, which I think is fascinating to understand. So I sat through a couple before I actually sat into the meeting to understand how it worked and who everybody was, because all of your top experts come and present this information. This is what they do, and they come and tell the policy committee, the experts on discipline, the experts on school safety, like curriculum, personnel, everything. They come and they talk about their specific area of expertise and how it relates to the policy as written and what we need to do with it to move it forward. So it's pretty fascinating. I mean, this is like the nitty gritty. Like that's where this stuff happens. So, and it really, it's pretty fascinating. So, anyway, that is what we're doing. Since we're not meeting every month in this group, the policy committee does meet every month right now. I mean, it's not a rule that we do. We just have a lot to do. So we're typically, I think we skipped July. But we may want to think about how to communicate. I know we have open meetings, so we can't really communicate outside of this meeting, but a way to communicate to say, hey guys, in October we're going to talk about this because we are not meeting again until November. Do you know what I mean? So policy committee meets next Wednesday, the 25th.
Do they give you the agenda ahead of time so we can talk about it?
The agenda can come out like 5 days ahead, Sabrina, is that right? Yeah, so it's not out quite yet. So related to what we talked about before, we'll probably talk about the 418 child abuse and neglect. And I think we're trying to get the 420 physical examinations possibly to talk about there too.
So I guess just for us, kind of the charge is to just monitor kind of what's going through the policy meetings and bring that back to our communities to solicit feedback, solicit discussions.
Yeah, I mean, it's important to get feedback from, and we all have different ties, and we're from different school communities, which is great too, because obviously all of our communities are unique, and the age of our kids and our populations that we are in touch with. So I think it's really important to do that. And also, if there are things that are not, we're not limited to what is on the policy committee agendas. That is a big part of our charge from the Board of Education. But certainly we can talk about other things too that are important. And CACs across the state do discuss different things. Sometimes if a board is grappling with something, they're trying to figure out, oh, this new, I don't know, this new thing came up, and they're like, whoa, what do you guys know about this? So they've gone back to their CACs in the past, say, hey, go out to your communities, figure out what people think about this, bring it back, because, this just came up, I don't have a good example of that, but, we do represent our communities, and, it's important to go out and create those relationships with, all of your families that you can find and your school staffs and everybody.
That was a question I had. So I am on the PTA for my daughter's middle school, and I was going to ask, say I go and ask, what do you think about 418? And they're like, we don't want to talk about that, we want to talk about 409, or something different. That's okay to record and bring back to you?
Oh, yeah.
They actually are more interested, this is a bigger topic right now in the school, and they want to go over this. Okay.
Right, because for example, right now, school safety is not one of the things that are on our agenda to discuss, but it's absolutely being discussed everywhere right now. So certainly if that comes up, that's important. I know the dress code was a hot topic a couple weeks ago when it was in the paper. The cell phone policy, those things it may not be on this agenda for that policy for that month, because those agendas are very specifically planned out. You've got people to come in to speak towards that. There are people that are writing drafts. Our legal team works probably full-time on this all the time, to be honest. It's a lot. But outside of that, we're not limited to that at all. It's important for us to keep an eye on it and know what's going on, and I want to know what our group thinks so we can take it back and be a representative voice on the committee. But certainly the things that are going on in our communities are super important, and we are a Citizens Advisory Council, so I feel like that's a really important part to not lose. So yeah, 100%.
How have you facilitated those conversations so that it's not like a bubble of our own connections, right? So I'm the treasurer of the PTA for the elementary school because my wife was already the treasurer of the high school, right? So doing double tutoring. So we have a core group of people that just are always consistently with us. But obviously getting a broad range of perspective I think is important. So how has it been facilitated in the past?
Yeah.
I think just this group conversation, because we all represent different people patterns and have different backgrounds, and our kids are in different circumstances. So I think really just the group conversation has helped to facilitate.
And in the school system or the feeder pattern specifically too, how have you gone out so that you're not just kind of talking to the same people? Have you engaged the principal? Have you engaged, I'm just curious at kind of what has been tried in the past?
So when I started here, I definitely communicated with all of our principals. My kids are in high school, so I know all of them coming up to the high school, and I'm the president of our PTSA at Walkersville this year. So I also communicate with the other presidents of the PTSAs, and I visited the other PTA meetings to talk about what we do here, and other just the stuff that we talk about. I just explained all that policy stuff. You can't go into a PTA meeting and be like, okay guys, today we're gonna talk about 418, you know what I mean? But you kind of translate it from the stuff that's on our website in FCPS to a conversation that you can have at the table at the library. So I use a lot of social media to put out hey, what do you guys think about this? Because there are people that never come to any meeting, but they want to, engage that way. And also people that I know that are in different circles, hey, you're going to I'm not super involved in our athletic boosters group right now. A lot of them are my friends, but I'm not there. So I'll be hey, go ask these people. And so a lot of times I do connect with people that are involved. And that is definitely a skewed perspective because a lot of people are not involved, and we're all obviously involved because we're here in the first place, right? So, so you do have to kind of reach a little further to grab the people that you don't see every day. But I feel like social media and also our school newsletters, we use this some more. I'm sure I think everyone does. So our principals are really great about putting things in if we ask them to, and say, hey, if you have a concern, here's my information. Feel free to send me an email, or let the principal know, and happy to receive. And I don't get barraged a lot of, but people are happy that this is happening, and they're glad to know that these conversations are happening. So it's not hard to engage that way.
Good, I appreciate it.
That's a good start.
What's the number for the dress code policy?
439.
439?
Mr. J, you want to introduce yourself?
Oh, good evening all. Apologies for the delay. I was on my calendar from last year, which met at 7. So, and today I had some interruptions that came a little abruptly, so that I didn't check, to double check. I figured my calendar was right. It was wrong. So, I'm so glad to see you all here. You are on the Citizens Advisory Council, which is, I'm sure there's at least one other. You are one of the few council members, committees, that is required by law. I'm so excited to have you here. Dr. Marco and Sabrina and I have been working, and Celeste and the team have been working to keep this group upstanding. When I joined the board in 2020, this group had dissolved. So they asked me, what do you want to be on? I was like, well, the one we need to have by law, of course. The one. So I'm just, it's been an uphill, from everything from the logo we have, that took weeks to get together from a public committee. I am just grateful for the legacy of leaving a standing committee. So I look forward to the work you're going to do. And I heard Celeste mentioning earlier a great deal of wonderful talk on policy. Policy. But that's what we do. When we sit here on this dais, that's how we take action, is policy. And so there is power in policy. And I hope that if that discourages you, let us know now. Because it's actually very empowering. So one committee I don't serve on, I wish I could serve on. I'm a teacher by trade, so in daytime I'm going. But it is power and policy. And I wanted to also come back to your bylaws here. We heard a lot about the advice and information as identified by the board. The board is asking you to please give us input on policy. Policy you see us talking about, and ones we haven't been mindful of either. Well, what's this one over here? Do you have one on AI? Not yet. You should get one. Do you have one on homework? We actually don't. You should get one. So it's policy we don't have, and ones you've seen that we see a need in. But I also want to come back to the first one, a channel for public concerns. So don't forget that part. And I think we have a form we got from Mr. Blivis about how to submit concerns for policy. Submit concerns. I thought we had a form that we drafted last year.
There was a form to draft for suggestions to discuss if it wasn't already.
Yeah.
And then there was also, and I think we talked about that like at the very beginning. So there was a form about you could put in the policy and a suggested edit.
Action, yeah.
Right.
Action,
So.
Yeah. And so also as a committee, you guys can come together and suggest just changes. So everything has to be through the lens of policy. This is a glaring issue you see in general. Well, this doesn't really tie to a policy. Everything ties to a policy, mostly. But you see a concern, you can bring it up. And we don't have, this school right here, they can badge in. This school right here doesn't have a badge in, or the badge is failing, it's not working. And I brought it up to the principal, and no one said anything. You can bring it up to your board liaison, which will be me until November 11th. After then, you will, our new board members will take on the reins of doing this policy, and I will be watching them. All right, make sure they do a good job. But I am excited to see you here. Please bring your full self, bring your skills and your talents and your connections. All of you have a circle and community members you see. One thing we're really big on is communication. If you find ways that people are hearing about SDPS, what we're doing, and you're somebody like, we're trying to find the rock we haven't looked under. We do Facebook, we do email blasts, we do announcements, but there are rocks we don't get under. People get their information from like someone at the playground or this Twitter feed. We want to get to people. So apart from your charge here, I'm asking you to find ways to get the word out for us, just in terms of SCPS in general, for people who they don't get to hear from us. So thank you so much. Celeste, you take it away. Good job.
Any other questions about policy or on it?
Oh, I have one. For the dress code policy, it's like in there. I don't know if you can answer this, but one of them is mandatory uniform policy. So say there's like a middle school, like Newmarket Middle School. Could that principal institute a mandatory uniform policy for that school? Or is it just strictly for like charter schools, which I know have uniforms?
That's a great question.
Yeah, so we talked about that a little bit, and I don't think that the principal can't just decide I'm gonna have a dress code in my building, unilaterally decide that. But we've had uniforms in the past, I think at some of the charter schools.
Yeah, I think also similar to the program of TTC.
Oh, and CTC.
Yeah, like the mechanics or
It had a ridge at one point, but it certainly wouldn't be an independent decision by the principal. It would involve stakeholder feedback and input, and I don't envision a principal surviving very well in the school district.
I was just checking because it
We
says.
just gave you guys hoodies, like,
Yeah, I was just checking because it didn't say it needed approval from the Board of Education. So I read there was stakeholder input. I was wondering on that perspective.
Great question.
That's a great question.
The question is, I think what you're getting to is, does it preclude the principal from doing it? Maybe they won't, but
Yeah,
does,
that's kinda-
does the policy say you can't do it without approval?
Silent on it, I believe. Just at Lingmore.
Just.
One thing I can put out there. Also want to encourage you, we have a member on the policy committee. You also have the actionable ability to come as an individual or as a group to the public comment section of the board meeting. So we set aside about an hour or so for public comment. We set up beforehand. If you want to, play your chances, you can come in the day of, but it's better to sign up online beforehand. And you can speak to the board directly about a concern you have, whether it's an individual or whether it's collectively by the committee. So and that's very impactful. We listen. I can listen now. First doing the cell phones, then they listen now.
it is very impactful. It's a powerful thing to do. If you haven't done it, it's pretty amazing.
Okay, now it's time for open comment. So anybody have anything they want to talk about or?
At the last board meeting, there was a discussion regarding cell phone usage and getting feedback from stakeholders regarding cell phone usage. So right now, in elementary schools, cell phones are to be silenced and out of sight. Middle schools is for instructional purposes, on the school bus, so before or after school, but otherwise silenced and out of sight. And high school is before and after school on buses during lunch and transition times, and for expressly approved instructional purposes.
Sabrina, can you possibly please send that to the group?
Absolutely.
And then I would recommend, because the policy committee is going to start diving into this, if that, and Mr. J, you can say no as to this, but I think that would be an excellent starting point for this group to start gathering feedback
Exactly.
from the community to see what their thoughts are. It's really divided right now. You get parents saying, I want my child to have this cell phone for safety reasons in the school, versus a lot of the research that's saying how harmful cell phones can be for our students. And I would say that would be a great starting point for this group.
And there's also a part for grown-ups to please refrain from communicating with your student during school times. So that's another part. So I'll send out, one of the PTAs, and I'll give credit to them when I send it out, I'm not sure which one it was, created easy-to-read infographics. So I'll send that to look at that. But just something to think about and something to start talking with your community about.
So this is a question to any of
This is currently being discussed by the board.
So the question that I would have in terms of, I'm curious, when is the last time, what board minutes or what other committee meeting minutes would have captured this up to this point?
Policy in the last board meeting would have been the one.
The last one? Okay,
Yeah,
thank
the
you.
last one. We discussed it at the last meeting.
Okay, I just want to go back and figure out what's already been discussed.
I'll send the link for the discussion.
Awesome.
That was provided at the Board of Education meeting also out to everyone, which included a middle school teacher, a high school teacher, and a detective, SRO?
SRO.
SRO, so school resource officer who was there.
I just don't want to rehash conversation that's been had already.
All right, yeah.
Additive as opposed to.
And the SRO provided his perspective as well as Sheriff Jenkins' perspective on cell phone. Sheriff Jenkins could not be in it.
Spoiler alert, everybody was against it. As a teacher, I think there should be a balance for training. I like the current policy with the out of sight for elementary and middle school. I think high school there should be some level of training on use. But I'll leave it to the community to suss that out, and I'd love to hear the feedback.
So everybody was against having the cell
Everybody we
phone?
had at the dais, the teachers
Okay.
and the SRO, it came down to essentially just like they wanted to see it. Their comment was most restrictive possible, basically a full-out ban.
If you really want to nerd out on this subject, read The Anxious Generation. It's powerful.
It is sitting on my dining room table.
I have a question. So why would I know the high schoolers can have their phones at lunch, but why would the middle schoolers be restricted on that front? That wouldn't make sense to me.
Well, apart from, well, again, this is the current regulation. We're testing it now, so I imagine having taught middle school for 8 years and taught them this summer school, I think because of the general nature of the student, like the hyperactivity, I think is focus. I also support the focus of just express classroom usage in middle school. And the hallway could be a distraction. There's the maturity level. High schools are a little more mature, not a lot more mature. High school too, a little more mature than middle school. So I think express classroom use permission. So if a teacher says you can have it for music, and that's the express permission given, I'm fine with that. Teacher says no, put it away. I support that as well. So I think that express use is fine. In middle school, like on the playground, a lot of them are more risk taking with middle school, without less thought. More risk, less thought. So I think that's an appropriate balance right now. Again, but I'm open to discussion.
Alex, where did you go to middle school?
I went to Newmarket, yeah.
Windsor Knowles just recently, 2 years ago or last year, instituted no cell phones at lunch. And the principal has shared that students finally started socializing again because cell phones were not there. They were actually having conversations with each other because the cell phones were.
Well, I mean, it would make sense for me because in the current policy for the middle schoolers, right, they have their phones on the buses because it's like, their time or whatever. So I feel like it would make sense for them to have it at lunch as well because it's their time. It's not educational time like the bus.
I'm open to discussion on that one. I haven't dove into that level. Right now, I'm pushing back against the wave of just total ban. Right now, the discussion we had at the board meeting, last meeting, was the recognition we had from our recommenders was just total ban on something altogether. So I was pushing back against that. I hadn't got to the nuances of when's appropriate. It was just totally no. But for discussion of middle school at lunchtime, I mean, maybe there could be a time for it, like the first 10 minutes of lunch, and then the last 20 minutes, they kind of put them away. I think there's a balance there. I think, as Sabrina mentioned before, also a parental balance. I've taught in classrooms where I have students texting me, I'm like, what are you doing? My mom asks me questions, I'm like, what? And she sees a picture, it's her mom at the store going, what shoes do you want? I'm like, oh my gosh. It's my mom. And I'm like, what do I do with that? I can't, yeah, it is your mom. Okay. So there's balance. I think there's balance, the appropriate balance, and I think it's work to do that. And people don't want to exercise that work, and I get that too. But I think that our students that leave us, they should be able to know how to use technology. So they get wild. I think they're kind of like they're banned. People leave you and they go crazy with it. They have no restraint. They go and they get fired from the job, or they're rude in a meeting, or they're rude to the judge in the courtroom. It should be trained on how to use technology. I think it's important. I know it's a hard thing because we had COVID and a lot of people let go. I think it's a balance we got to strike. And so some of it can be tighter at younger ages, and I can't really argue with that. I think that's fine.
Alex, your questions would be a good starting point for you to start talking to students and asking them what they feel is fair and appropriate,
yes.
And then bringing it back to our November.
Thank you, Dr. Marco. Yes.
Those are good thoughts, though.
And what grade are you in, Alex?
I'm in 11th.
11th grade, marvelous. So I want to encourage you as you're going up on your term to grab one of your peers and shake them to apply as well, because it's great to have a student. Remember, we had one last year, but they didn't stay with us. So first, stay with us, and two, call for legacy.
And you can always do a book report on the anxious generation.
That's amazing.
So excited. I think too, what does away mean? Because I think sometimes, does that mean in your book bag, at your desk, or locked away in a locker? I feel like there's.
I think the general feel that I've seen from discussion from the board and from policy in general has been recreation in general. It's been book bags. Parents want them to have their phone for after school for pickup and where are you? And I've seen it done well. I've seen it done not well. I had one student I taught this summer. I forgot he had a tool until the end of the day. I'm like, oh. He goes watching, calls mom, I'm ready to get picked up. And I forgot he had it. He never used it all day long, so he got time for bus on. So model case, right? But I think those are discussions to have to go in your locker. One thing I brought up during the meeting last week was confiscation. Right now, it's if you break policy, it's confiscated. I have concern with that. I'm like, as a teacher, I'm not taking policy. I'm not taking to property. Telephone? No. You broke it. You broke it beforehand, but now I have it, and you broke it. You got to pay for it. No. So like, we look at like notices like, if you do, my thing is like, we should have set parameters. If you cross the parameters, then the hammer comes down. But if the hammer comes down, who's taking the phone away? I think it should be admin, in the office, not necessarily a teacher in the classroom. I think those kind of little small things are, but again, I was dealing with the whole know-it-all versus like nuances.
To that point too, I think the enforcement has to be there because I know, we heard all about this policy, prior to school starting, and then some of us parents were just having this discussion the other day, and then we see our kids I see an Instagram post. What, and having that discussion, what is going on? Our teacher, we finished our assignment, so they said we could get on our phones. Like, wait, what, how is this? And this is with multiple parents too in different classes that this is being allowed. So what is when we implement these policies, the training and the consistency there?
And that was part of the discussion at the board meeting by staff, is that implementation and that consistency across different schools. And even within the same school, that some teachers do some things and some don't. So
I feel for the teachers with that because when you're trying to enforce this policy and others aren't, it's how do you uphold that?
But I think also it has to come down to, one thing I don't want to take away is teacher autonomy in the classroom. So there are reasons for that, and for me, it's kind of easy. I teach mobile development, so they program phones in my classroom, so I kind of got to cheat with that one. They can't use their phones in my classroom. So I think there's a space where the teacher might have like photography, take a picture, do this, or for, it's an app you can use to identify a butterfly. So there are times when a teacher can use their cell phone in the classroom or make it appropriate. But then it comes down to classroom management. The policy is firm where if I give you this warning and you break the violation, the policy is now this. If I do allow phones in my classroom and you break the policy, I can go right to, step action. And I mentioned before at the meeting, I'll mention before again, it's important for our admin to support teachers. The worst thing to do is have a policy that you have in place, and I've done this before with dress code. I was told, I'll tell the story, no cold shoulders. That is, it cannot be. Shoulders are cold shoulders, you can send them to office, and they have to get a jacket, and it wasn't SDPS, this was another county, I won't mention the name, and half an hour on cold shoulders, no. I'm like, okay, all right, next day. Comes in, cold shoulders. Oh, one girl goes, you can't have that on. I said, I can. Actually, you can't. I can't. I sent you to the office. I sent to the office. She said, the ugly sweater, puts the sweater on. Mom calls and has a concern. The person comes to me and goes like, well, you should have left her alone. What? So if we have policies, not only about it being enforced by teachers, but admin, the teacher follows through with it, they're going to go like, I quit. If I can't get backed up by the office, I'm going to quit. So it's because we follow through every level of the chain. Because I followed through on the policy, but then they kind of left me under the bus. So I think it's a total balance there. So.
gathering information also, part of the discussion was about Apple, the Apple Watches, different ways, not just the actual phone itself, but other ways of communication. So it's broader, and then the student member of the board shared their perspective also. So again, for students, that's another way to communicate and share information is connecting with the student member of the board because he was able to share from his perspective. He did a survey of students that responded and shared their perspective about cell phone use, this new cell phone use policy or regulation.
And I'll put this out to you. I won't be here for the implementation, but it's kind of panders off into the AI policy. And so I would encourage you, when you look at the AI policy, look at how College Board's doing it. College Board, I think, is actually, even though they did a mid-year switch, which was kind of annoying, they did actually move to what's called like demonstration work. So you can use the technology, but they have to demonstrate, demonstrate knowledge. So I asked you the question about your work and like separate from the AI. Can you explain what you have here? So I think as you get into cell phones, technology, kind of keep on the heels with technology and go right to AI. Because I think that if you're looking at that one next, that's coming up next, right after this. In our team, honestly, I want to ask you to push the board and the policy committee because they've been kind of like gun shy on AI. And I want them to be gun shy. I want them to kind of at least look at it and like throw it to the wall, see what sticks, and get feedback, and look at best practices and ask best experts in the field. But I think I feel the board right now is kind of like, we'll let that play out. Don't do that. So I'm asking you to kind of like get their heels a little bit. Like, when's it coming with AI? Go, oh, we'll go get to it. Don't let them get to it. Tell them that you want to see some thoughts on it at least. So that's something
That gets me to a question. If you create a mediocre, best of the moment policy, how hard is it to revise?
Not hard at all. So yeah, when you
Like,
make
practically speaking, like I recognize, hey, if you can get through 3 meetings, it can be like practically speaking. Do they get revised?
You do.
Okay.
And so certain policies they get like the 5-year revision treatment or 3-year or 2 years. For AI policy, that'd be one we have to look at every year.
At
So
least.
they would have to revise
Yes.
it every year.
I mean, at the pace of growth, at least. But that was the question, is sure, so getting a policy that we're getting a really bad AI policy that's not gonna be reviewed for 10 years, you're screwed.
Yeah, no, we
Because
don't
you're
have
gonna
a short
need
time
it
limit.
in a year and a half, or at least a robust understanding of it. And if you have a bad policy that precludes that for a decade, you've hamstrung yourself. That's why I was curious.
Great question.
In which case, I'm thrilled with throwing something against the wall and seeing what sticks.
Yeah.
I came from an environment in DOD when you create a policy, it can take 3 to 5 years to revise the policy. And so you had to be right, or just don't do it.
Yes.
So
Yeah.
that's hence the curiosity.
This one they
Far more willing to
they
take
redo
risk
it,
here.
yeah. And to that point, you hear the board say, "Oh, we're in the 400 series right now, or the 500 series." That's cute and all, but don't let them tell you we can't look at this policy you're curious about because we're in that series right now. You can totally abut that series. The priority is priority, and your voice can change the priority. When they tell you, "Oh, we're currently in the 400 series, we can't really move out of that right now."
Because that's the current plan, not
Yes, they
necessarily
can.
the emergent need.
They can. Don't them tell you they can't move out of their series. They can.
The AI was a pretty interesting conversation that we had at the March 27th policy meeting this year. We don't have an AI policy, and there's AI now that has been developed to detect AI, right? So AI is getting smarter and smarter, some of the issues that we are discussing, but it's smart, but it's not. So AI is only as smart as how it got programmed. So there's bias, there's, it's not inclusive, it's not representative of different things. Sometimes it's completely false, but you don't necessarily know that. So when we talked about it, the House and Senate there are bills that are addressing AI right now. I'm just reading from my notes back because it was March, so it's been a long time. Some of the feeling was, hey, you know what, the state education, the Maryland State Board of Education is looking at it right now. Let's let them do that and then see what happens with that. But that was a good 18 to 24 month timeline. And some people were more comfortable with letting that go. Like, well, why are we gonna do the same work that they're already doing? Let's wait and see. But the concern was, well, if we wait and see, it's 18 months from now, it's going to be completely different than it is right now. And then we still don't have a policy, and now their work will be outdated. So that was that discussion that we had. It was a pretty serious discussion. AI brains are all taught by humans to interpret data and information. So it depends on who has programmed that and what humans have put that in there.
What data they use to train it.
Yeah, all of that. So I'm going down my notes. We decided, the policy committee decided we needed to partner with an expert on AI, but we need to vet them and be sure that they don't carry the biases that we are trying to avoid. The Board of Ed was supposed to discuss the creation of an ad hoc committee to investigate AI for policy writing.
That's moving forward.
Yeah, so that was the March discussion that we had, and then that was it, because then we said, all right, well, then it went back to the board to develop that committee.
I would argue you could even consult with somebody who is an expert in AI that has bias, as long as you're not asking them to write the algorithm, because you can pose questions about what could the effect of a bias be. So you can, not to narrow the field, to trying to find that perfectly unbiased person, which quite honestly, in my experience, I haven't found,
Right.
because we all have them.
Yeah.
We just perceive ours to be less harmful than like his.
I think it's very important to be brave and venture into the mire of this one, because I think waiting, this is something, AI won't wait. It jumps and jumps, and AI was AI to develop, to study AI, that could catch AI, and then for a little while, it couldn't. And I think recently, last thing I read was that they actually now have models that can detect AI again. But it's now they're working on a new thing working now. What's the word looking for? It can reason now. Looking for it, so it'll take a little bit longer, but now it's able to reason. So they're giving it more and more complex algorithms to run through, or just program lines to run through. This all is a big web of conditionals, if this, then that. But I think looking at like people who had to be brave, we can use our early entry and looking at them. Like right now, College Board had to be brave. AI is being used for College Board tests. And so they had to be brave. And actually, they messed me up last year because in the middle of the school year, they changed the AP rules. For AP CSP, they changed it in the middle of the year. So, but I like the change. The change is you can use AI, you can reference things, but on the exam, we'll present you your work. You have to explain your work, just written. And so I think having students perform, our APL had the same concern. We had students who had to write code, but how do you know it wasn't their uncle who wrote the code before AI came around? It was your uncle before AI. Now it's AI. And so the thing I said was have them do performance on the day of. Do X, Y, and Z. And they couldn't do it, then they couldn't write A to F. Couldn't do X, Y, and Z. So I think just having students perform more often is going to be with teachers. And for our use case right here, it's about school. It's about knowledge base and about performance and can you learn this skill. I think we don't have to solve all of AI at once. We can focus on what is our use case. Our use case is classroom material. Students can produce things. Ask them questions they have to have taken knowledge of, or have them produce things on demand that show they have that skill. And they can use AI in a reference case with other books and other sites to kind of add onto their reference cases, but like it has to be able to be absorbed and retained and presented by them. I think we can balance that out now and modify as we go forward. We have to be brave with this one. I think that's something else I'm asking you to keep on their heels with, because they're going to lean on being like, we'll wait for the state board, we'll wait for Congress. You know how fast they move. They never get anything done. And so I encourage you to help them be brave.
Do you know what the timeline on the committee is?
I know it's just getting started. We identified 2 co-chairs.
That's why I keep it all in one place. I know we talked about that. When was that? Oh yeah, it was March.
Perfect. Okay.
I will send an email out to everyone regarding some links and some the regulation and information for you to forward. And then any feedback, the cell phone policy will not be discussed at the next meeting, but probably at the end of October. We'll start discussing it. So we have some time, and to email Celeste or Lindsay in regards to that, so that they can start bringing together information to share.
That's right, because we will have 2 policy committees before we meet again as a group. So we do need to talk about communication and.
I think before, didn't we do like a comment matrix where we put the policy in there and then people could put their comments in? Is that something we could do again? Because I could make that.
Like a Google Doc or something?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, where we put the number and what the policy was, and then people can add their comments in. So we could do that.
That'd be great. And like we said, when we go out and talk about these things, other things come up, and those are the things, like a lot of the things that we talk about in policy committee are not the things that, your people that you're gonna go meet with are discussing. And so, like, oh yeah, well that's nice, like it's cute, the 400 is feeling cute, might talk about 400, but they want to talk about something that's more pressing to their life right now. And so part of our job is learning some of this stuff and then being able to translate it back and forth. So we get feedback, and then we can help our communities also understand what's happening and how it works. And also, don't panic about all this stuff, because these things do not move super fast. Like by the time we look at, or we're gonna look at this next month, and then we're gonna talk about it, and then we're gonna get some feedback maybe the following month. So it doesn't like move super fast. I think when we started, we're like, okay, well the policy meeting's next week, and we've got to get all of it together. Like, you really don't. We've got time, and so we are in the 400s. So look through the 400s, and see if there's anything that's interesting to you guys. Because we're kind of going through those because they were the older ones and sort of more pressing because they have more to do with students.
And then we'll add cell phones and AI on
Yeah,
that
for
list
sure.
too. Anything else that anybody is concerned about or any feedback?
One small thing.
Yeah.
As you talk to your community and you hear their concerns, don't be afraid to be like, well, I don't know how to do that, because you have a superpower. Superpower is Mr. Sabrina Nail, our ombuds. And so if you have someone who doesn't know how to navigate the system, or you have concern, I just had my neighbor text me, oh, I have a concern, my child, now I don't know. I said, well, I will send you to the ombuds. And I saw him the other day. He looked very happy. So if you have a question you can't answer while you're dissolving material and you're learning our policies and how we do things, if you get stuck and you're like, well, I can help you. I can help you. I can get you to Sabrina. She's amazing at putting out fires. So people come to her like in flames, and in 5 minutes or so, they look like they've been cooled off. And so
So true.
we can help you, empower you to help your friends navigate the system and learn some things. So don't forget your Sabrina.
So when I send the email, you'll have my information also, phone number, website.
Anything else? Is this your last meeting?
No, next one is the 11th.
The 11th, okay.
I'll be around
All right.
one more time.
Okay, great. All right, so I'll add these things to the agenda for the next meeting. And is there anything else? Are we finished? Okay, thank you guys so much. I think it's been a great year.
Thank you.
So we are adjourned.
We are adjourned.